So the president of El Salvador, Bukele, was visiting the White House, and there was an interesting exchange there. On the couch was Pam Bondi. In the chair was Bukele. Next to Pam Bondi on the couch, there was Trump. Standing behind them was Stephen Miller. We're going to hear from all four of them. There was a great exchange there with Caitlin Collins, who... from the point of view of this administration, she's an adversarial member of the media, and no doubt she is adversarial. But these are the useful members of the media, the people who are out of power. Their party's out of power. They're the ones who ask the tough questions. You don't want to get the questions about, tell me about how great you are. So when she challenged them, I don't think she liked the result. Donald Trump was sitting there, and of course, when it's time to take questions. She directed the question at him, but he gave a quick answer and then passed it off to the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, to go into a little more legal detail. And this is where it got a little hot. Check this out, Pam Bondi.
Go ahead. Let's hear the question from this very low-rated anchor at CNN.
Love that.
Low-rated. Which one is that?
The man who was mistakenly deported to El Salvador.
Well, let me ask Pam, would you answer that question?
Sure, President. First.
So she's asking about Garcia, the man that she says was mistakenly deported to El Salvador.
And foremost, he was illegally in our country. He had been illegally in our country.
Don't worry, this rumbling on the microphone will stop. She's saying first and foremost, he came to our country illegally and has been in our country illegally.
And in 2019, two courts, an immigration court and an appellate immigration court, ruled that he was a member of MS-13 and he was illegally in our country. Right now, it was additional paperwork had needed to be done. That's up to El Salvador if they want to return him. That's not up to us.
And so if there's any doubt that Garcia was here illegally, he's a Salvadorian citizen, and he had been living here illegally for 8 years before he got in trouble with the law. That's when he made his asylum claim. Oh, now you can't take me back to El Salvador. It's too dangerous there. Gangs will kill me. Not that I'm part of a rival gang or anything. It's just really dangerous. So then Trump asked Stephen Miller to go into a little more detail from his point of view.
There's an illegal alien from El Salvador. So with respect to you, he's a citizen of El Salvador. So it's very arrogant even for American media to suggest that we would even tell El Salvador how to handle their own citizens as a starting point. As two immigration courts found that he was a member of MS-13. When President Trump declared MS-13 to be a foreign terrorist organization, that meant that he was no longer eligible under federal law, which I'm sure you know, you're very familiar with the INA, that he was no longer eligible for any form of immigration relief in the United States. So he had a deportation order that was valid, which meant that under our law, he's not even allowed to be present in the United States and had to be returned because of the foreign terrorist designation.
And so then she turned to Bukele, the president of El Salvador, if he's going to confirm what she's just heard. He's one of yours. He's one of your citizens. Can't you bring him back? And Bukele said, no, we're not returning a terrorist.
Can President Bukele weigh in on this? Do you plan to return him?
Well, I'm supposedly not suggesting that I smuggle a terrorist into the United States, right? How can I return him to the United States? Like if I smuggle him into the United States, or what do I do? Of course, I'm not going to do it. It's like, the question is preposterous. How can I smuggle a terrorist into the United States? I don't have the power to return him to the United States.
So you could release him inside El Salvador?
Yeah, but I'm not releasing. We're not very fond of releasing terrorists into our country. We just turned the murder capital of the world into the safest country of the Western Hemisphere, and you want us to go back into the releasing criminals so we can go back to being the murder capital of the world? No, that's not going to happen.
They'd love to have a criminal, released into our country.
There's a fascination.
They would love it.
Yeah.
They're sick. These are sick people.
I love it. He was talking about Caitlin there. These are sick people. So I like that Bukele guy. So if you're wondering, well, if it's been exposed now that this guy is here illegally, he's not a citizen, he's not going through the proper immigration process. He just claimed asylum after he already been in trouble with the law, and it turns out for some other violations with gang stuff, including human trafficking, that he got deported. And just because they didn't put the new cover sheet on their TPS report, it's supposed to be like, some bad thing, and we got to return the terrorist back to America now. Excuse me. Sounds like a terrible idea, but you wonder, how are there still protests? How are there still people who are supporting this guy? I bet you most people don't know. You want to go see how this is reported in the media? First, I'll go to the local TV affiliate there, WJLA, where they talk about protests in Washington, D.C., supporting Garcia and trying to get him brought back to the United States. See if they ever mention if he is here illegally or if he's a citizen of El Salvador, or if he's a confirmed gang member by 2 different court hearings.
President Trump met with his Salvadoran counterpart in the Oval Office today, and a big focus was on that legal fight around a Maryland man mistakenly deported to El Salvador's notorious mega prison. We've got more on what they had to say coming up in just moments, but first, 7 News' Brad Bell was at another protest calling for Kilmar Abrego Garcia's return. Brad, what his supporters are saying now is this case drags on.
All right, let me go and cut through this. There's a 2-minute report on this protest. Not once do they admit that he's not here legally, that he's an El Salvadorian citizen, that he's been confirmed by 2 different courts as a member of MS-13. If they don't ever tell you he's an illegal alien, why wouldn't you be on his side? You know, they like to call him a Maryland father over and over, whether you see it in USA Today or on CNN on the caption. It's Maryland father this, Maryland father that, not illegal alien this, not MS-13 gang member that, not human trafficker this, or criminal that. No, he's a Maryland father. That's his defining characteristics, Maryland, and the fact that he's reproduced. Check this out. The caption on CNN's today, I took a picture of it. Hearing today on mistakenly deported man as Trump admin defies courts. Oh, you got it so good. Here's WJLA. After they did the 2-minute report on the protest asking for Garcia to come back, they actually reported on the meeting that I just played you with Bukele, Bondi, Miller, Trump, all saying that this guy is an illegal immigrant with a criminal record, human trafficking, MS-13. How do you do a 1.5-minute report on this without admitting it? Watch him do it. Watch him.
All right, Brad, thank you. And Tom Rousey picks up our team coverage at the Alert Desk. Tom, Garcia's case was a main topic of discussion during today's Oval Office meeting between President Trump and the president of El Salvador.
Well, that's right, Michelle. Both leaders made it clear that they're in agreement. They say Kilmar Abrego Garcia will not be brought back to the United States. Now, this despite that Supreme Court ruling that the Trump administration must facilitate his return. Attorney General Pam Bondi says this is an international matter, saying they could only provide a plane if El Salvador agrees to let Abrego Garcia go home. But El Salvador's president, who you see here, he says the ball is not in his court either. He claims he has no power to do this.
Because he's an illegal immigrant.
It's like I smuggle him into the United States, or what do I do? Of course.
Watch, they're going to cut it off before he says the illegal part.
I mean, the question is preposterous. How can I smuggle a terrorist into the United States? I don't have the power to return him to the United States.
Now, Abrego Garcia was sent to a notorious Salvadoran prison due to a, quote, clerical error by immigration officials. He also had a protection order from 2019 that prevented his removal to his home country of El Salvador because at the time he said his life was threatened by gangs there, Scott.
Did you hear what was in that meeting, and then did you just hear how it was reported? No wonder people are protesting. They don't even know. They're not even being told. They're intentionally leaving out the most crucial details on why this guy got deported. Not because Trump's a meanie or the Team Red doesn't care about the Constitution, because he's an illegal immigrant. He's a criminal. He's a human trafficker. And if your news isn't telling you that in a report, they had 5 minutes to get that in. And how many times did you hear Pam Bondi say that? Did you hear Stephen Miller say that? Trump said that? Bukele said it, all in the same meeting, and it got left out of the report. Meanwhile, you go over to Fox News. Let's see if they left it out. I mean, you know they didn't, but this is what it sounded like. Which news is more accurate?
You and I have never received in our lives as much positive press
I know.
as this MS-13 gang member.
This is Stephen Miller again, but on with Jesse Waters last night.
Received. We couldn't get headlines like that if our lives depended on it.
Yeah.
So let's just go over the facts here. He is an illegal alien. Fact 1, what do you do with illegal aliens? You deport them. Fact 2, he's an MS-13. What do you do with illegal aliens who are also in a transnational terrorist organization? You deport them more quickly. Oh, and on top of that, he's implicated in human trafficking. Deport, deport, deport. This is who they're going to bat for. What are we supposed to do? Buy the guy a house, get him some free health care, maybe let him run for Congress.
And it sounds like hyperbole, but you just heard them. They are covering for an illegal immigrant criminal, MS-13 human trafficker. They're leaving all of that out of their reporting on this case. That's not just like, oops, I'm a sloppy reporter. That's downright fraud. That's like even beyond propaganda. That's just fraud. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. No wonder your liberal friends have no idea what's going on. The truth is being hidden from them every day in every news report. My next guest helps us keep abreast of what's going on outside of the United States because we've been digging in our belly button for most of the show today and haven't paid a whole lot of attention with what's going on the other side of the world. And I don't know how this guy knows all the stuff he does, but he's a welcome addition to the show. Dr. Jeffrey Brodeur from Rigaku. He's an expert in all things chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear. So let's get us all caught up. Can I start with Iran? There was a meeting that happened over this weekend. It sounded really optimistic last week when they were talking about it, and I've heard no reporting on it since then, Dr. Jeff.
Well, thank you very much. It's good to be back with you. Iran, we did hold talks with Iran on Saturday, described as constructive. I don't know if we met any common ground. And the good news is April 19th, they're scheduled to continue talks, not in Oman, but I think they're going to choose someplace like Rome or someplace in Europe.
Interesting.
But in terms of your road to war update, let me quickly rattle down the list. Russia continues their attacks as they continue to smell victory on the tactical side while continuing to prolong negotiated ceasefire and a peace deal. Ukraine, on the other hand, continues to lack the ability to defend their own and protect their own citizenry. A huge Russian attack on Palm Sunday, where a number of civilians were practicing their faith on that religious day.
Well, can I hit the pause button? I saw the headlines on that. I tried to read up on it, but it was a really small summary. But what was the point of this attack, like a religious attack on Palm Sunday?
No, I think it strikes fear in the citizens of Ukraine, and that was the intent. I think Putin will call it collateral damage because there was a military target, I don't know, maybe within 100 square miles or something like that, and munitions went off course.
Okay. Well, that's kind of the impression I got. Like, this wasn't, he's not attacking a base or a column of tanks. He hit some people that were worshiping. So, yeah, this was just a fear move.
It absolutely was, because remember, Zelensky has not faced an election since the war started. He continues and remains the president. And so the citizens who have remained in country, I would expect are going to apply significant political pressure on him to speed up the ceasefire and the peace deal.
All right. Where are we at then with Israel and Gaza?
So Hamas is squeezed again. Israel continues to make tactical strikes into Gaza. They are currently negotiating another hostage deal that hopefully will come to fruition. I think right now, and you asked me the other day, there are about 58 hostages remaining.
Wow!
And experts estimate that about half of those are alive.
I thought the number would be much, much lower than that. So is Hamas still lobbing rockets into Israel, or are they just hunkering down?
Right now, they're on the defense. The good news is the citizens of Palestine have begun to small-scale protest against Hamas. You may have caught that in the news a couple days ago.
I did not.
But there seems to be some political unrest, and I think the information campaign that Israel is launched to try to rid Hamas of leadership in Palestine is creating some cracks in their armor.
Wow, you think that actually works?
Over time, but they're cornered right now. Hamas is cornered in a small section of Gaza adjacent to Egypt. They're literally cornered. They have nowhere else to go.
Are there talks that are currently happening out in the open, or is no big summit being held? They're just talking through back channels.
No, I think they've got some third-party negotiators with them, but it's all kept on the low and low. I don't know that they're probably. I would estimate just based on what I've read, they're probably at the 40 to 50% solution. So it's probably too soon for a political leader to announce any.
Well, Dr. Brodeur, I don't hear a whole lot of optimism in your voice when you talk about it.
No, I think Hamas's days are numbered. I don't hold out any hope for a ceasefire or peace deal anytime soon with Russia and Ukraine. And I think Iran, whether they realize it or not, they're sort of on their last leg. The president is setting conditions for a legal tactical strike into Iran. And what I mean by that is Iran's violations with a nuclear non-proliferation treaty, which is a steadfast international treaty of the United Nations, is international law, and they've clearly violated that. And he's not going to allow them to pursue a nuclear weapon. Iran right now is desperate for money, so much so that experts estimate that between February and March of this year, the export of oil to China, of all countries, remember we talked about the tie between China and Iran and Russia and North Korea,
right,
went from about 800,000 barrels per day to about 1.3 to 1.6 billion barrels. So China is buying about 90% of all of the Iranian export oil. They need the money. They need it bad. That's why I would suggest that they're going to try to continue to prolong the negotiations, the talks, in hope that sanctions will be lifted and they can continue to create distress and unrest in the Middle East. And the other thing that I wanted to bring to your attention is Zelensky last week announced that they didn't take hostage. They captured a couple of Chinese soldiers on the battlefield.
Ooh.
That's not been verified yet, but it just goes back to this nexus of Russia, Iran, China, and North Korea. And as the world population and leaders continue to constrain what they're able to do, they're relying more and more on each other, which makes this a three-dimensional chessboard, right?
All right. Dr. Jeffrey Brodeur from Mergaku, I appreciate your expertise. Thanks I hadn't heard some of that information, and you gave me some stuff to Google. Well, WFAA just updated their report here, and I mean less than a minute ago. I hit refresh right before the music came on just to see if there's an update. And in the last 60 seconds, they updated their article saying at least 3 people were shot at Wilmer Hutchins High School in Dallas this afternoon. Not 3 people injured, not 4 people injured and 1 shot. 3 people shot. So 4 people have been hospitalized, according to their latest report from now almost 2 minutes ago. So WFAA staying on top of that. Thank you very much, guys. This is something we're going to be keeping updates coming at you for the rest of the day at least as more information comes out. But 3 people shot. This is a mass shooting now. This isn't one guy shooting one other guy. This is a mass. Oh, man. It just got worse. Leave it here. Our news department's scrambling right now, and they'll get all the details better than I just relayed them to you. So it's a tough story to follow. But I had done a story that WFAA was covering last week about squatters, and there's some laws that are floating around in Austin to change the way we deal with squatters here in Texas. And we were talking about that just on the show, me and you, and I got a whole lot of emails. Apparently, this is a more pervasive problem than I thought. Because let me just read you a few of them, because some of them are repetitive, and I'll tell you which one I got a lot of. But let me give you a long one first. This one comes from Rhonda. She says Texas is in the top 2 states for squatting crime. Texas. We're supposed to be like the Yosemite Sams of America. Get off my property. Woo! Right? I thought I'm stereotypical dumb Texan. Okay. She says, squatters do not have permission to be on your property. It's a crime to break and enter or not leave when told to. But just as your lawyer guest said, the minute they are inside, they currently, in Texas law, they have rights. It's maddening. You cannot imagine. We are still cleaning up our own situation from last year. These are not poor homeless people who want to get out of the cold. They are professionals, and they know the law and the ropes better than the homeowner, the police, the JP, and everyone else. They were one step ahead of us the whole way. Governor Abbott's on record as stating that criminal trespass is against the law in Texas and that we are a stand your ground state and can defend our property, but he is delusional. Our law in no way supports this with trespassers who enter your property when you are not there. You cannot touch them or use a gun or force if it's not self-defense, or you are the one who goes to jail. They changed the electric out of our name, sold our appliances, removed every single electric wire in the entire house, just to name a few. I'm a conservative pro-police person, but the Fort Worth police did not care. They did nothing. The neighborhood city did nothing. They would not even come pick up the pit bull-looking dogs. The squatters left there until we paid $200. You do not have time for all the nightmares, we could tell you. Another guy named John says he knows a woman who went somewhere in Europe for a month. When she came home, there was people in her house. Her house was destroyed. Most of her furniture was gone. Sold, along with all the copper piping and wiring. And she could not get back into her house legally. It doesn't make sense. How can they go into her house illegally and get to stay? Anyway, she finally got them out with about $50,000 worth of damages. Another John sent in an email, and I got to tell you, I got about 12, maybe 15 of these where it was a short paragraph, but John's was the best. It said, man, I think I would bring a shower curtain and lay it on the living room floor and tell him it's to keep the blood from getting all over the carpet when I shoot him in 10 seconds. There will be no witnesses. And I don't condone this. I don't approve of this. I don't endorse this. But a lot of people said they would just shoot them. And since there's no witnesses, they would say it's in self-defense. How do you disprove it? I'm not anyone's lawyer. I'm not giving out advice. I'm just telling the squatters out there, there's a lot of people in Texas that if you squat in the wrong house, it's not going to go well for you. They're all not going to roll over like some of these other people that were emailing in. And it's not just John that said that. There's about 15 people, and maybe they're real enthusiastic about sending emails to radio shows, but I wouldn't test it. And I'd be interested into seeing how these situations played out. How do we know it hasn't already? How do we know someone hasn't squatted and a homeowner came home, went and got a gun, shot him, and then just called the cops, say, hey, I got home, and then this guy broke in and had to defend myself, and then it was never reported as a squatter getting shot? Would it even make the news? Would you even know the difference? Because there's no way they would tell the cops, well, this was a squatter, and so I shot him, because then they would be in trouble. So maybe this does happen. You should be fascinated in the process by which people evolve their political beliefs, because it works usually in your favor. Younger people tend to skew liberal. Older people tend to skew conservative. And I think you would like the results if we could speed up that evolutionary process a little bit. So I always watch with rapt attention at the people who finally admit it. Because do you know how hard it is to get any human being on earth to admit they did something wrong? I mean, it's embedded in us from kids. Who did that? I didn't do that. Did you do something wrong? Not me. It was so-and-so's fault. Or no, I didn't get that wrong. You just misunderstood me. It's just something like that. Well, to have a human being go out and publicly say political things for years at a time and then have to go out at some later point and admit he was wrong, I always find that amazing. I always find that, first off, I give that person credit. The first person to admit that they're wrong usually starts with the credit building in the debate stage for me. But the latest example here is Bill Maher. Now, Bill Maher is still on Team Blue. Bill Maher is not a Trumper. Bill Maher is one of the most strident Trump critics consistently out there for at least the last 10 years. But how do you explain Joe Rogan being a lefty and being a Bernie bro and then coming around to Trump? How do you explain Elon Musk doing the same thing? How do you explain all these other people who have the similar story? Liberal when they were young, conservative when they got older. Now, I am not holding out hope that Bill Maher will ever finish the conversion. It may be too late for him. He's somewhere in his 60s or something at this point. But Kid Rock invited him to the White House last weekend. Kid Rock's real name's Bob. You'll hear him reference Bob in one of these clips. And Bill Maher said, you know what? I can go meet this guy. I know I've said terrible things about him. And he was surprised at how much backlash he got after he admitted he was going to go visit Trump. And he thought that was a bad sign. So he did a review on his show on Friday. Let me play you 3 clips from it. First off, Maher says Trump was nice.
He's much more self-aware than he lets on in public. Look, I get it. It doesn't matter who he is at a private dinner with a comedian. It matters who he is on the world stage. I'm just taking as a positive that this person exists, because everything I've ever not liked about him was, I swear to God, absent, at least on this night with this guy. Bob, Kid Rock, told me the night before, he said, if you want to get a word in edgewise, you're going to have to cut him off. He'll just go on. Not at all. I've had so many conversations with prominent people who are much less connected, people who don't look you in the eye, people who don't really listen because they just want to get to their next thing, people whose response to things you say just doesn't track, like, what? None of that with him. And he mostly steered the conversation to, what do you think about this? I know, your mind is blown, so's mine.
All right, and here's the fun part. Bill Maher made an insult list and got Trump to sign it. I thought this was cute.
First good sign, before I left for the Capitol, I had my staff collect and print out this list of almost 60 different insulting epithets that the president has said about me. Things like stupid, dummy, lowlife dummy, sleazebag, sick, sad, stone cold crazy. Really a dumb guy, fired like a dog, his show is dead. 60. I brought this to the White House because I wanted him to sign it, which he did.
Hey, isn't that nice? Isn't that cute? They're making friends. This is how friends are made. One more clip from Bill Maher talking about his trip to visit Trump in the White House. This is from his HBO show on Friday.
I never felt I had to walk on eggshells around him. And honestly, I voted for Clinton and Obama, but I would never feel comfortable talking to them the way I was able to talk with Donald Trump. That's just how it went down. Make of it what you will. Me, I feel it's emblematic of why the Democrats are so unpopular these days.
You know what? I have heard that from a lot of my liberal friends and some listeners who happen to be liberal. They say I don't feel like I have to walk around eggshells on you. Of course you don't. I don't care if you say something that's politically incorrect or not woke or might offend some people. If it's funny, it's funny. No, you can relax around me. You don't have to worry about offending me. I can't go to HR and get you in trouble for anything. So I thought that was a beautiful story. Bill Maher gets credit for going. He gets credit for being open-minded, and then he gets credit for admitting it on his own show. He's still not a fan of Trump, but he at least reached out to Olive Branch and had the conversation, and I thought that was super cool. Coming up next, Mark Levin. I'm James Parker. This has been The James Show on News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3.